Alright, so we're going to pick up where we left off on the static equilibrium problem on how to use the matrix solver on your calculator. So here I'm using the TI-84, and I'm using the Simultaneous app. So first you need your two equations. So these are my two equations I'm going to solve. Then I need to know how to set up a matrix. So when you set up a matrix, you're going to have the number of rows equal to the number of equations. So I have two equations, so I'm going to have two rows. One for each equation. The number of columns is determined by the number of variables you have. So I have T1, I have T2, and then I need one more column for any numbers I have that don't have a variable associated with them. So in this case I'll have three columns. Now what I'm talking about for variables is I'm saying I have cosine of 45 times T1. So the cosine of 45 is going to go in my T1 column. I have negative cosine of 30, that goes with T2, so that's going to go in my T2 column. And then any other numbers I have that don't have T2 or T1 with them would go in my third column. Now in order to have this work out, it's set up so that you're going to have essentially T1 plus T2 equals the number. Okay, that's going to be your setup for the problem. So I do have to adjust this equation over here slightly, and so that means moving that 10 over to the other side, so now it's equal to 10. Okay. All right, so now generating my matrix. So I go and I look at what's the coefficient with T1. So it's cosine of 45. I look at the coefficient with T2. It's negative cosine of 30, and the number on the other side is 0. I generate the same thing for my second equation. So I have sine of 45, sine of 30, and on the other side my number is 10. So once you get it in that format of variables on one side, numbers on the other side, you can plug it into the matrix. Now, there is a matrix solver on your calculator. You'd have to go to matrix button. The matrix button is my second inverse key here, but we're just going to use Simul 2. So let's see how that works. So I got to turn my calculator on. I'm going to go to Apps. I'm going to choose Simul 2. Hit Enter. We'll bring this to the center of the screen a little more here. So I'm going to choose the simultaneous equation solver. That's number 2. Okay. I have two equations with two unknowns. So I'm going to have to select two equations and two unknowns. I would like a decimal answer, and I'd like to use degree mode. I'm going to click Next here. I'll input my data. So I have cosine of 45, negative cosine of 30, and so you see it just goes across the top row there, equals 0. And then I have sine 45, sine 30. Sine 30 is 0.5. Verify I'm in the right mode. Good. And then I have 10. Once you're done with this, you click Solve, and it will give you two answers. Now, x1 is the answer for my first column's variable, T1. x2 is the answer for my second column variable, T2. If I messed anything up in my typing, I can always hit System and go back to that system of equations just to make sure I inputted everything correctly. Otherwise, that's the fast way to have your calculator do that system of equations. And this is very helpful when you get more and more equations. So let's say we did 4 equations with 4 unknowns. This would solve that as well.